you ever been on a long family road trip? Maybe it was a trip with cousins, uncles, aunts, and grandparents? Well, Luke chapter 2 tells us about some of Jesus' early family road trips with his parents. The first trip he made was just before he was born. His mother, Mary, was pregnant and she traveled from Nazareth to Bethlehem for the census.
The second family road trip that we learn about for Jesus was to Jerusalem. There, Jesus met a man who was waiting to see the coming of God's rescue plan. God promised him that he would not die until he saw God's Savior, the Messiah. Also in Jerusalem, Jesus met an 84-year-old woman named Anna. When she met Jesus, she praised God and told everyone about the good news. After meeting these two persons, Jesus and his family went back to Nazareth, where he grew up and became a strong young man. If we jump forward a few years, we learn about Jesus' third family road trip. Although this trip was one they took every year to Jerusalem, this particular trip was worth writing about. Jesus was no longer a young child. He was now 12 years old, and his parents were taking him to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. After a week or so of festivities, Jesus and his family packed up their things to head back home. At least, that was the plan. Believe it or not, Mary and Joseph headed home and forgot Jesus in Jerusalem.
Wait a minute. How did Jesus' parents forget him in Jerusalem? You see, this was a very long trip, which took several days to complete. There were many other travelers on the same road trip at the same time. It wasn't uncommon for family members to walk with others on their journey. Mary and Joseph simply thought that Jesus was walking with friends. It wasn't until the next day that his parents realized that Jesus was missing. And what did Mary and Joseph do? Well, they did what all parents who lose their children do. They turned around and went back to Jerusalem to search for Jesus. It wasn't until the third day that they finally found him. And do you know where they found him? It wasn't at the fish store, the swimming hole, or even the local arcade. It was the temple. He never left.
Jesus' parents were scared and worried when Jesus was missing, but he wasn't worried at all. When Mary and Joseph found him, he was simply sitting down with the teachers of the law, listening and asking them questions. Although the teachers were amazed by his understanding and his answers to their questions, Mary and Joseph were not happy. Mary said, "Your father and I have been worried. Why did you treat us like this?" Even as a young boy, Jesus was good at answering a question with a question. So he asked, "Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know that it was necessary for me to be in my Father's house?" Jesus was not afraid to stay behind and talk about the scriptures with the teachers. Despite being missing for a few days, Jesus eventually returned home with his parents and was obedient to them. Jesus grew in wisdom and started to learn what God had planned for him.
Jesus' parents did not fully understand why Jesus needed to be in the temple. Later in life, his disciples would also not understand all the things he did. Jesus shared God's wisdom with his parents and with his disciples. We can trust God to share wisdom with us too. I know it may be hard to believe, but that's just how it happened in the Bible.